Welcome to This Explainer. You know that feeling, right? Like you're stuck on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up, yet somehow you aren't actually getting anywhere? Well, today we're exploring a deeply relatable theme. We're talking about the crushing weight of modern burnout, our really desperate, exhausting search for an escape, and the psychological traps we fall into along the way. We're going to visualize exactly why the modern world feels so overwhelmingly heavy and how our attempts to cope can actually become the very things that trap us. So, to really wrap our heads around this, I want you to picture a guy we'll call Abdel-Azim. He's going to be our narrative proxy for today. He's 23 years old, working as a freelancer. Every single morning, he slings his laptop over his shoulder, pops his earbuds in, and marches off to his favorite workspace. He hustles until midnight, just swimming in a sea of deadlines, bills, and a constant buzzing anxiety about his job security. Does that sound familiar? Why does his life, and maybe even yours, feel so incredibly exhausting, even when you're supposedly doing everything right? Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The illusion of meritocracy and life's pressures. See, the root of Abdel-Azim's exhaustion isn't just physical, it's structural. It comes from the absolute crushing weight of modern expectations colliding head-on with reality. And this brings us to a really fascinating concept called anomie, which was heavily explored through Robert K. Merton's strain theory. In simple terms, anomie is that psychological chaos, that deep, profound confusion that happens when society tells you that you must achieve specific goals, like wealth, happiness, and total security, but the legitimate tools to actually get there just aren't available to everyone. Imagine Abdel-Azim, right? It's 2 a.m., he's fueled by caffeine, and he's literally paralyzed by anxiety because he's following all the rules, but that promised security is just nowhere in sight. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast. We are all sold this societal promise, this illusion of meritocracy. Work hard and you'll find success and security. Boom, simple. But the market reality is brutally different. You've got millions of people fiercely competing for a tiny handful of opportunities. It's exactly like millions of sprinters all racing for a single finish line. Only one person can actually cross it, and the door just slams shut on everybody else. The sociologist Ram Ahuja actually mapped out exactly what this massive gap between expectation and reality does to the human mind. He identified 3 tragic psychological crises. Basically, when you can't reach the goals society demands of you, you suffer an inability to adapt to yourself, a total loss of commitment to your society, and worst of all, a profound, chilling alienation from the people around you. You just feel completely and utterly disconnected. Which leads us to our next chapter, Section 2, Alienation from the Natural World. This whole feeling of disconnection isn't just about our jobs, It's deeply embedded in how our hyper-digital lifestyle has totally severed our fundamental historical connection to the physical world around us. The brilliant psychoanalyst Erich Fromm described this as cutting the umbilical cord. Historically, we humans had these primary ties. We belonged tightly to a tribe, a village, or a religious community. Now, sure, these ties limited our individual freedom, but they gave us immense safety and a real sense of absolute belonging. Modern life came along and cut those ties to give us individualism, but man, it left us isolated, desperately searching for a new sense of safety in a massive, totally indifferent universe. And what on earth did we replace those primary ties with? Well, philosopher Franco Berardi vividly argues that our modern brains are in a state of continuous electrocution. Think about it. We are constantly bombarded by this flood of digital stimuli, ads, notifications, and endless information, all while being hammered by the pressure to compete. It's literal sensory overload. So it's really no wonder that sudden panic attacks, which used to be pretty rare, are now just an alarming everyday reality for so many modern workers. We are simply not biologically formatted for this kind of speed. Let's transition to what happens next. Section 3, Drugs as a False Solution. So, what actually happens when that electrocution becomes just too much to handle? We reach a breaking point. And for our guy, Abdel-Azim, that crushing alienation leads him to seek out a rapid chemical fix. Erich Fromm called this attempt at a chemical escape the orgiastic union. When Abdel-Azim decides to use a substance for the first time, he isn't just looking for a good time. He's actively trying to erase that painful feeling of separation. By chemically altering his state, he temporarily destroys his awareness of that harsh outside world. For just a fleeting moment, his anxiety evaporates, the walls come down, and he finally feels at one with everything around him. To him, it feels like pure magic. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate trap. That initial high grants him instant connection, these amazing sparks of creativity, and a profound calm. He seriously thinks he's found the ultimate life hack, but then comes the biological crash. Because while his brain took a nice little vacation, the world definitely didn't. The world waiting for him is exactly as demanding, fast, and disconnected as it was when he left it. The problem wasn't solved at all, it was just paused. Moving right along to the biological side of things. Section 4, the dopamine trap and tolerance. So the crucial point is the biological reality of what's physically happening inside Abdel-Azim's brain as he continues to self-medicate and chase that paused reality. As you can see, our brain walks a very delicate biological tightrope between two systems. You have the stress system, which signals your needs and pain, and the reward system, which delivers dopamine and joy. When you abuse chemical escapes, you overstimulate that reward system until it essentially just shuts itself down to protect itself. And at the exact same time, your stress system goes completely haywire and becomes permanently hyperactive. You are literally rewiring your brain to stop feeling joy naturally while maxing out your baseline anxiety. It's a brutal trade-off. Let's move to and see how this builds into a really tragic, inevitable progression. By month 1, hey, it's just an initial escape, maybe some light microdosing for a creative boost. No big deal, right? But by month 6, Abdel-Azim finds he needs it just to handle his emails and function at work. And by year 1, that original magic, it is entirely gone. He's now completely dependent on the substance, not to feel high anymore, but literally just to feel baseline normal and keep the overwhelming dread at bay. The source material uses a fantastic, if kind of bizarre, metaphor for this exact feeling: jumping into the pickle water. Think about it like when you watch a really immersive movie. You willingly suspend logical thought, right? You let the movie generate these powerful artificial emotions inside you. But the catch is, when a movie gets too scary, you can just get up and walk out of the theater. With chemical dependency, you jump willingly into the illusion, but you basically throw away the life vest. You lose the ability to safely exit the illusion once it inevitably turns into a nightmare. And guys, the physical damage is very real, specifically taking a toll on the frontal cortex. Abdel-Azim starts suffering from seriously impaired decision-making and totally loses the ability to plan for his future. But honestly, the worst part? He develops this deeply false sense of accomplishment. He feels the intense satisfaction of having achieved incredible, massive things, while in reality, his actual life is completely stagnating. And this eventually spirals into rising paranoia. He starts suspecting his friends, which of course just deepens his isolation even further. Which brings us to our final segment, Section 5, Doors of Perception or Burden. Despite all these massive risks we've talked about, there's always been this grand philosophical clash about altered states of consciousness. Is taking these substances a profound cure to our modern condition, or is it a deeply, deeply dangerous mistake? On one side, we have the famous author Aldous Huxley. Now, he held a highly romanticized, almost spiritual view of the whole thing. He argued that our brains act as filters, constantly blocking out the vast, overwhelming reality of the universe just so we can survive day to day. He believed that drugs temporarily remove these filters, throwing open the doors of perception and granting us magical access to what he called the boundless mind at large, basically unlocking our true, unfiltered potential. But we must immediately contrast that with a really stark warning from the legendary psychologist Carl Jung. Jung argued that navigating the raw, unfiltered subconscious without intense preparation is a terrifying mistake. He likened it to the sorcerer's apprentice. You might be clever enough to figure out the spell to summon the ghosts, but if you don't actually know the spell to banish them afterward, you are trapped. Gaining that unfiltered knowledge doesn't free you at all. It creates a crushing moral and psychological burden that you just aren't equipped to carry. And that leaves us with this final, bold question to really reflect on today. As we face the very real, very exhausting pressures of this modern world, what is the ultimate cost of our chosen escapes? Are we truly curing our modern alienation by chasing these chemical illusions, or are we just permanently numbing ourselves to the very reality that we actually need to change? It's an absolutely vital question for anyone feeling the burnout of modern life right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this visualization helps you navigate your own world with just a little more clarity.